This is Chiapas Mission Trip Orientation, segment number 6, talking about the Celtal people. Generally, most Americans think about Mexico as a place where everyone speaks Spanish and where the Spanish culture is really infused throughout the country. And while it's true that the Spaniards came here and conquered Mexico in the early 1500s, bringing with them their Catholicism and their Spanish language, before that there were people living here. Mayans, Aztecs, Incas, who are the native Mexicans, just like we talk about Native Americans. They are the Indians who were present before the Spaniards came. And descendants of those indigenous groups are still present here in Mexico today. In Chiapas alone, there are dozens of indigenous people groups represented. And they have their own language and their own traditions and their own culture distinctive from the Spanish. And so, as we engage in missions in Chiapas, the people group that we have the most interaction with is the Celtal people group. They too have their own traditional dress, their own language that is very different from Spanish, and a style of worship and living that is very comfortable and very traditional for them. Many of them move to cities for school or business or to sell or buy goods and services, but in general, even if they come to cities like Ocosingo or San Cristobal or Tuxtla, they keep very close ties with their Celtal communities in the villages where life is simple and basic even today. Celtal people who have become a part of Protestant religion tend to be very conservative in their behavior, their dress, and their everyday life. They work hard to distinguish themselves from the Catholic members of their community. And this is hard for Americans to understand, including me. It's something I've struggled with a lot over the years. But the truth is that Catholicism in Mexico, especially in more rural areas in the south and Yucatan areas of Mexico, really is very different than the Roman Catholicism that we are familiar with in the United States. Instead of being fairly in line with Roman Catholicism, they talk about traditional Catholics here. And what that means is the result that Catholicism here is the result of a hybrid or an amalgamation of the traditional religions that were present in the Mayan, Aztec, and Incan cultures before the Spanish came with their Catholicism. And when the Spanish came, they attempted to take over those areas of life, including the spiritual or the religious areas of life. And they tore down the Mayan temples and built Catholic cathedrals in their place. And part of the way of keeping peace in response to that action was to say, you can continue aspects of your traditional religion at the same time that you worship with us as Catholics. And so what has evolved is a kind of Catholicism that includes a lot of idolatry, a lot of animism, witchcraft kind of spells and hocus-pocus kind of practices that are very, very inconsistent with the Catholicism that most of us know about in the United States and in other parts of the world. And so a great deal of effort is made by the Celtal Presbyterians and Celtal Protestants to distinguish themselves from Catholicism, from Catholics here. And part of that is that they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't dance, they don't wear or display crosses, they don't demonstrate the observation of saints' days and festivals in the streets like the Catholics do. And so they are very conservative people in their behavior, and their expectation is that if you, as an American mission team, come to Mexico to worship and join them in a project, you do so with the same kind of conservatism that they have. And the truth is that in the United States, there are different expectations in different cultures as far as things like drinking, smoking, dancing, partying in the streets. But while you're here, it's important to try to observe the self-taught culture and fall in line with those expectations to the best of your ability. On one hand, we can argue that we don't necessarily think that those are the ways that we demonstrate our faith in the United States. But the fact is that you're not in the United States on your mission trip, you're in Mexico. So we ask that you make every effort to be conservative in your dress and your behavior and in all of your interactions while you're here. And I'll get more specific about that in the next segment, but it's important to understand the background for why the Saltal people are as conservative as they are and why they have those expectations of you as Christians coming to be a part of their community of faith